Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today is our first ever episode with three people on. Historically, it's always been me interviewing one other person at most. And today we have Tennis Tribe writer and social media manager Hanlon Walsh on, as well as somebody who we've wanted to have on for a while, Blair Henley, who is a writer, a broadcaster. What do you say you do when people ask, Blair? It seems like you do everything in tennis.
I usually say I work in tennis media, and
Okay.
people still are confused by that. But if I try to actually explain it, they're more confused. So tennis media is sort of the big umbrella.
Okay. But for people who don't know, so you travel to tournaments, you interview players after the matches in front of all the fans. You get the fans going. You do trivia questions between sets, which you did at the Dallas Open last week. And I wanted to ask real quick about that. And I need you to be honest with me. I didn't see anyone miss a single trivia question. Are you telling them the answers before?
See, this is what happens when you have two hardcore tennis fans who are actually there for multiple sessions. So here's the thing. If somebody walked up to me that I didn't know, was like, do you want to do this thing on camera, on a microphone in front of a stadium of, 2,200 people, I'd be like, absolutely not. So in order to sort of sweeten the pot, I explain what the prizes are. And then I also say, should you desire assistance, I also might be able to provide that for you.
I knew there was a system. That sounds fair. I think I would want to know the answer as well.
No,
So
you learn.
So when you say tennis media, tell people a little bit more specifically. What are all the things? So you're at the tournaments doing what exactly?
Yeah, so I think it just really depends on what the tournament hires me to do.
Okay.
Usually, I will tell you, at the Dallas Open, I was doing all the things. I was writing for the program. I did not anticipate them actually putting my face on said program, but when I realized,
I saw it a few days when I was there.
Right, I was like, okay, I need to actually this needs to be better than
Put the Blair signature on it.
Right. I was like, okay, well, some effort needs to go in here. So did the writing side of things, did all the on-court stuff. And in Dallas, as you mentioned, that did include more than your average fan engagement stuff. A lot of tournaments, for instance, I'll be in Indian Wells, and it's every once in a while we have, a sunglasses giveaway that we throw out into the stands. But for the most part,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear cut. I write the bios for the players. I introduce them. Depending on what court I am and what tournament I am at, I often play sort of the stage manager role as well. Make sure the player does not barge onto the court when the TV cameras aren't ready. I've gotten to know a lot of camera people in my time, which is actually it's one of the weirder parts of my job, but one of the parts that I really thoroughly enjoy is that I know all the camera people, hey, good to see you. It's been since, Cincinnati last year, because you have to, often it's just the camera person who's given me a sign that, okay, it's time to say, and now let's welcome our players to the court. Please welcome, blah, blah, blah. So so many tournaments, it's very strictly put the players on, do the post-match interviews, keep the crowd engaged, let them know when the next match is coming, and then do it all again. Some tournaments like more fan engagement, some tournaments like me to write, and then some tournaments I do social media. Cincinnati would be a good example of that, where not only do I do the social media content for the tournament, but I also help out the USTA while I'm there. So I do anything that the USTA wants to get pre-US Open, I'm asking all those questions to the players. So generally some combination of on-camera hosting, stadium hosting, writing, and social media. That was a long answer, but
Got it.
That's the answer.
No, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Hanlon, anything on the Dallas Open for Blair?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're kind of the tennis media jack of all trades, staff of one. So I'm curious what just a general, day in the life looked like for you. Like what time did you get on site? What time did you leave? What were you doing in between the matches? Give us a little rundown?
Sure. So I can give you the rundown specifically for Dallas, and I can tell you that I've never had a tournament quite like Dallas before in terms of because it was a home game for me. Technically, I live in Fort Worth. The tournament was in Dallas. It's about a 45-minute drive with no traffic. It was important for me to be there in the mornings to get my kids up out of bed and take them to school. However, I was not, sometimes depending on how long the night matches go, you might not be wrapping up until 11 something. And then I was writing the next day's bios and program content after that. So many nights I did not get home until 12:30 or 1 when you included the drive. So, and then waking up at about 6:45 to get my kids up and ready, and then being on site at about 10:30. We had a 12 o'clock start. Most tournaments are 11 o'clock. I was a little surprised actually that they went with the 12 o'clock, but I guess they just wanted, and we didn't have any overlap though, which was surprising. So we had 3 matches starting at noon, which is unusual. Usually it's starting at 11. And so pretty much was on site and putting players on, interviewing players, or giving prizes to fans in the stands. That's what took up the day portion. And it's pretty much rinse, repeat until the end of the day, until the end of the tournament. So there you go.
Yeah. I was wondering too, with you being in Fort Worth, if you if it's easier for you for like a home tournament like that to shut it off like from family and like stay in Dallas and just be kind of in tournament mode all week. But it sounds like you kind of, dipped your toes in the family and tournament side.
I tried. Well, I've never had a situation like this before. The closest I've ever come has been Delray, because my family lives in Palm Beach Gardens. So going down to Delray was sort of a trip home. And so I did see my kids came with me. They stayed with my parents. So I did see them in the morning, but knowing sort of that my mom was there to do all the things, and I didn't really have to make sure every little detail was like, who's the babysitter for today? Like, did I make sure who's doing the carpool? Did I forget anything? It was a challenge. And I will say the Dallas Open, they were very kind. They were like, you can stay in the hotel. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through. But by the end, guys, I'm not going to lie. I was like just praying that I could string together coherent sentences because I was not sleeping enough.
Oh gosh, man. I can't imagine.
It's hard.
Even like us, like being there during a full day session and a night session, like, just doing like social media, but like sitting in the stands more or less as fans, like we were pretty tired just from like, I guess the indoor, like the indoor aspect and like being like kind of confined, like not being able to like walk around the grounds like you would be at a slam kind of took its toll on us a little bit. So I can't imagine how it did for you being there, 12 plus hour days.
And it was great. Like, and that's the thing about tennis. And you guys know this too, from the on-site work that you guys have done. You just kind of know what a tournament week is going to be. You know that you probably aren't going to have any idea what's going on in the world, or at least this is for me. I'm like, like there could be something major that happens in like international news and I would probably have no idea. And you just sort of know that, the laundry is going to pile up and you're just going to catch up on life when you're done. And I think having done a lot of tennis, you know what to expect. That's always one of the funnier, it's really not funny. It makes me chuckle a little bit internally though, when I work bigger events. So say US Open or Indian Wells, where they might have a first time producer or a first time stage manager who's coming from another sport. Inevitably by like day 2.5, they're like, this is what you guys do. So it's just like, if you're coming from really any other major sport even, and we're talking at the highest level, nobody puts in the hours that people who work tournament tennis at the tour level do. So
because it's all day. It's like 11 a.m. to midnight a lot of days. In NBA it's a 2-hour game, and NFL it's a 3-hour game. That's it. That's interesting. Question about the different levels of tournaments. So Dallas is a 250. You're going to Indian Wells, I assume.
Yep.
So that's a Masters 1000. Then we've got the Grand Slams. How did they all kind of compare to each other from well, I guess we'll get into doubles, from a doubles perspective in your mind?
Ooh, that's a good question. From a doubles perspective. I always just find it amazing how many people consistently turn out for doubles. If you were to look on social media platforms, which is why, you guys are carrying the doubles flag, and I love it so much, because I think it was pretty recently, was it Marcelo Mello? Somebody called out one of the tennis bodies for their lack of coverage of doubles. And listen, I also get it from that perspective. On social media, doubles is not going to get probably the same type of engagement unless a server hits the volleyer in the back of the head or something like that. It can, but it's in terms of, they don't cast a super wide net for doubles. And as a result, it's similar, like, really, guys, I feel like it's how people talk about women's sports. Like, give them the platform, and you will see that it does bring in tons of interest, and it can bring in tons of money, and it is exciting to watch. I think all those same things are true about doubles. I just think people don't necessarily cast a wide enough net in terms of the coverage of doubles. So I think maybe some of the same issues are present sort of in both areas. I think they're comparable to me. But people turn out. I think that really across levels, whether it's a 250 to a 500 to a 1000, people are there, and people stay for the doubles, and people so often are like, you see like the face, this is so amazing. I know.
They have so much fun.
Right, exactly. It's fun. The players are generally more, I shouldn't say more, but a lot of times they're more interactive with the fan.
Especially when you get like a singles player playing doubles. Like
yes.
I loved watching John Isner and Jack Sock on Stadium Court in Dallas, and they had, I forget who we saw them. Well, do you remember who we watched them play against in the quarters? I think
they played. Who was it? I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up. I think it was Winthrop.
Yeah, it was. That was a really. It's always really fun to see singles players and doubles draws, which I think is like a huge appeal for Indian Wells too. All the single stars, typically seem to come out at Indian Wells. What do you think? Go ahead.
No, sorry, Hanlon. No, I was just going to say the one thing that the singles players playing doubles, to me, have a huge advantage in terms of the box office appeal. Obviously, there's the factor that maybe they're more well-known to begin with, but also this is not their livelihood. So they can afford to showboat a little bit on the court. They can afford to go for the ridiculous shot. And so it's a little unfair, because I think some people are like, oh, well, the guys who, or the women who play just doubles, like, it just isn't as fun to watch. Well, it can be fun to watch, but B, it's a lot. If it's not, it's because there's a lot more riding on it for people who just play doubles. They can't afford, like, even watching Sam Querrey play doubles with Jackson Withrow, who Jackson is a delightful person, as is Sam, but Sam is going to be a little looser on the doubles court, and Jackson, they're just the tension level. And to be fair, anyone in relation to Sam, there's probably going to be a differential in the tension level, but you could see the difference in terms of how they approached it, just written all over their faces. It's just different for the people who, like, their paycheck is how well they do in doubles, and that's it. And so I think that the singles players have an advantage in more than one way in terms of how many people they draw to a doubles match.
Right. Yeah. It's a huge discrepancy. I remember being at Indian Wells last year and watching, I think Coco was playing with Leylah Fernandez, and it was just a totally packed house on Stadium 3. And it's this, just like you said, Coco is just having a good time. Her and Leylah are both having a good time. And it creates like a better atmosphere. And then there's also more of a buzz and like a story around it, because it's like, oh, Coco's playing doubles, because it's like, I guess, so unique. But anyways, I looked up who Isner and Sock were playing. So it was Oscar Ate and Blair, we're gonna need your help here because I never know how to pronounce these names.
Peter
Peter
Goyovchik, my fave.
Goyovchik.
Yes.
Okay, that's who it
They were
was.
hilarious, by the way. From the very they did. I don't know if they were. I don't know if they're like traveling to some tournaments together or what the deal is, but they were like joined at the hip for the whole week. So it was neat to see them, get to play together. Neat the Germans stuck together in Dallas for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of the different players and their personalities, who have been some of your favorite or most interesting interviews? And then second part to that question, how do the top players, so like if you interview Federer or Nadal or Serena, how do they compare to some of like the younger players?
Ooh, good question. So my favorites. Grigor is always a favorite for me, just because to be honest, sometimes Grigor gives you too much. You're like, Grigor, I don't have time for this whole answer.
I don't need your life story, buddy.
Right. But he's not annoyed to be there. He is one of the most genuine people you will ever meet. He has fun with whatever it is, doesn't take himself too seriously. Those are sort of to me, like the puzzle pieces to somebody who I enjoy interviewing or doing things with. Francis Tiafoe is another one who I would also describe in those same ways. He sometimes doesn't do as well on the microphone. Like he does great, like on a one-on-one, if we're having a conversation or if we're doing social media away from the court, sometimes he's a little looser in those situations. So that's probably where I would prefer to talk to Francis, but he has come a long way too. I'm always just amazed that we expect, especially players whose first language is not English, that we just expect them to be able to go up to the microphone and say something insightful and clever and make people laugh. Like the bar has been set so high for what we expect for these players post-match.
No pressure.
Yeah, I read on Twitter, I think last night, that like Jennifer Brady froze up on Tennis Channel. Did y'all see that?
Oh no, I didn't see she was commentating.
Yeah, they were like had her on all week, and apparently I didn't see it, but I don't know. I saw on Twitter that like she totally just like locked up on Tennis Channel. Anyways, sorry to call out Jennifer Brady, but that's exactly what you were talking about.
It is hard. It's just so far out of a lot of their comfort zones. So Grigor's a great one. On the women's side, Arina Sabalenka on court never fails to make me laugh. Half the time, I'm not even sure she has even listened to my question, but she will take it somewhere in the answer, and I would say almost always gets a laugh. So she makes me a little nervous, to be honest, because I'm like, I don't know what's coming, but also I love that she just kind of says whatever's on her mind.
It's hilarious.
Oh gosh, who are some others, man? This is go ahead.
What about the part two, some of the top ones? I know we're like kind of in a crunch for time, so I want to make sure we get through a few other things.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so I would say the biggest difference is just that I am much more conscious of the clock. For the most part, they are all great, but they are perhaps more conscious of the clock, and I am more conscious of the clock. And I also sort of have to have like my peripheral vision has to be working overtime, because often there is a comms person somewhere in my sight line who's going to be doing the wrap it up signal. Yes, because my job is to get as much as I can, and their job is to make sure that there's a stopping point. So in my opinion, being respectful of the time will eventually get you more time. And so it's always my goal to not push it. Sometimes it just happens if, say you get a player who's just feeling talkative that day and you've used 3 minutes and asked one question. Those days you may have to push a little bit more, but I've tried, just in terms of my working relationships with people, to try to be respectful of that. So that's really the biggest difference to me. They're all pretty fantastic.
Yeah, but their schedules are just so much more packed, it seems like.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they want to make sure, especially, with COVID, that's been a big change. It's a lot of times you're doing the media hits like one next to the other, next to the other.
Mm.
And if person to your right sees that you got 7 minutes,
Yeah.
it can start this chain reaction. So then when you see what everybody else is getting, it becomes even maybe a little bit more complicated in that way.
Interesting. So tell us your story. How'd you get started in tennis? I know you have to run in probably 5 or 10 minutes, but
Oh yeah, no, we're good. So my dad's a tennis pro. He still is to this day. He's a director of tennis down in Florida. And so my mom ran the tennis shop, did all the inventory and pretty much ran the business. So I grew up, especially in the summers, kind of hanging out at the courts, and just my parents sort of trusted that I wouldn't kill myself, and I played as much tennis as I could. It was great. I feel like my dad's pros, the guys who work and girls who work for my dad, I feel like they probably wanted to run when they saw me coming, because I was always like, any chance I could get, it was like, do you want to go hit for 5 minutes? 10 minutes of mini tennis, like, let's go. No, but for the most part, they were fantastic. So I grew up around tennis. And then was in Florida for most of my formative years, which is obviously a super competitive USTA section. Played tournaments there, was sort of a late bloomer, have liked to volley, have a one-handed backhand, had people hitting high backhands to me all match long for much of my early tennis days. But anyway, once sort of everything fell together, decided to go the college route and ended up at Rice University. Absolutely loved it, but was not sure afterward what I really wanted to do with my life. Taught some tennis immediately after, worked for my dad for a little bit, and then got a job kind of developing a brand new club in Houston. It was really great background, but was also probably not what I saw myself doing for the rest of my life. So got married at 25, and then traveled minor league baseball. My husband was playing minor league baseball at the time. So we traveled for like 3 years. We moved about 16 times, I think. Like, everything we owned could fit in our car. But during that time, because I couldn't have a quote unquote normal job, I started writing for a tennis website, and that's sort of where it all began. And then when I moved back to Houston, when he was done playing baseball, got a job working for Tennis Now, and that's where I covered a lot. I covered several tournaments with them, and I mean, you guys know the media rooms, and granted, COVID has changed some things, and I hope they'll change back, just because if I were a young person starting out right now, it's really hard to break in, because it's the media rooms, it's meeting other people in tennis. Like, tennis is small enough that you just have to sort of like build your network. And when a position comes available, maybe that person can say, oh, I met this, young whatever who really wants to get started, who is really good at whatever tournament that they met you at. So I feel like it's become much harder, but for me, the media rooms and building those connections, that's really where it all started, for me. And it was one of those connections, one of my best friends now, Nick McCarville, who recommended me for my first ever stadium hosting job in 2015 at the US Open. And the rest is history. I started at the US Open, so everybody from there on out was like, oh, well, you've done the US Open. You must know what you're doing.
It's a good awesome resume builder.
Yeah,
good
totally.
feather in your cap.
So it's funny to hear like everybody's different stories on how they got started. It's all so different. I don't know, so many different angles and ways to get into it. So a couple of final rapid fire questions for you. I'm going to let Hanlon take his, and then I'll do mine at the end.
Okay, ready.
Yeah. One tennis wish list, or one tennis wish for 2022.
That Roger can come back healthy, and end his career on his own terms.
Well said. Favorite tournament to go to as a fan?
As a fan, ooh, okay, threw me a curveball there at the end. I feel like as a fan, I don't know that much compares to the US Open. the vibe, the fan vibe at the US Open is just like, if you get one of those good matches, like you'll never forget it.
Best under the radar tournament or host city?
I don't know if it's under the radar, but I would preach from my soapbox that everyone should go to the Hall of Fame Open in Newport in July. Go what the tennis now, especially now that they've resurfaced the courts, it's like we had really solid tennis. It was fun to watch. You can go to the museum, you can see the induction, go to the Hall of Fame Open.
Always been on the bucket list, so we'll keep that in mind. And then last one for me, who's your dream mixed doubles team?
Can it be past? Are we just talking about active players here?
It can be anybody. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh, there's just so many options. I have like my tennis player Rolodex is.
Do like maybe a top three or like three from each side?
I mean, okay, so this is going to be really random. Then perhaps there's some recency bias here, and I don't even think the doubles would be any good, but Delpo and Gabriela Sabatini.
Ooh, that's a good one. Talk about crowd favorites. That would be a packed house. Sentimental favorites. I'll go for it. Well, I think that was it for me.
So follow up to one of Hanlon. So for your favorite tournaments, have you been to most of the international tournaments as well?
I wouldn't say most, but definitely some.
Okay. What about Aussie, French, Wimbledon? Have you been to all three of those?
I have. Okay. Yes.
What is your favorite tennis book?
This is probably going to be a cliche answer, but The Inner Game of Tennis. It's hard to beat.
It's a good one. Yeah, that is. There's a reason it's still popular.
The other tennis book, and I can't say that I've read all of them, but the other one that I feel like I read and I was like, wow, that's quite a story is oh my goodness, am I going to blank on Andrea? Shoot. Hang on. No, I even know the name of her foundation. This ring a bell to you? Andrea Jaeger. There we go. Thank you. She was a prodigy back in the day and has a really fascinating story and has pretty much dedicated her life to helping kids. So it's really fascinating story.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. What's okay, I see it here. Yeah. Cool. We'll link to that in the show notes. What's your favorite non-tennis book?
Favorite non-tennis book?
Or it can be a genre or.
I really liked Consider the Lobster. It was a collection of essays. So the whole book was a collection of essays, but it was, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's one of the ones that, I don't know, I feel like I could read it multiple other times.
Yeah. His String Theory is my favorite tennis book.
Nice.
David Foster Wallace. Yeah. Isn't he the Consider the Lobster author?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
I thought I had that.
That's where gosh, it's been a while. Did he write all the essays in there? He's definitely in there.
I don't know. He may not have written all of them.
So that's the question. But yes, there is a tennis essay in there by him. So yeah,
okay.
Really enjoyed it.
Got it. And then last question, and we'll let you go. It's kind of broad, but take this from any angle you'd like. How do we grow the game of doubles?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. I think that whether it's tournaments or the tennis governing bodies, I feel like they have to trust the product. And we saw, like, even at the Australian Open, there was perhaps some distrust of the product, or that the product could carry itself. And I think that in doubles, to me, that is key, is you have to before doubles can reach its potential, people have to trust that there is potential to be reached. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think that is big. And I don't know, I do think it would be huge. Like Jack Sock playing doubles, a great thing for doubles. Nick Kyrgios playing doubles, also a great thing. There, you know, the few, you know, I mean, like the Bryans were a doubles team. That's what they did, was doubles, but they also sort of understood the show aspect of it.
Right.
I would love it if, and some doubles players do this, but it'd be so great if more doubles players could embrace making it a show. And that's easier said than done, because if my livelihood was riding on whether or not I won tennis matches, if I felt like something might distract from that, I'd be like, heck no. But I do think it can be done. I think it just sort of has to be normalized and encouraged. And that would take people probably caring more. You know what I mean? I feel like it's like a chicken or the egg thing almost for me.
It is. Yeah. I've used that exact same analogy before on previous episodes. Because do you start with, you know, Tennis Channel and ESPN and whoever else covering it more, or do you start with the players putting on a better show, creating the demand, then they get Tennis Channel's attention, and then that creates more demand, you know? So it can go both ways, but I like the thing you said about how the Bryan brothers knew how to put on a show. That's really good. And I'm with you on, like, if I'm a doubles player, I'm really like, this is my livelihood. So I'm focused. So I'm not going to try to put on a show. But at the same time, if they're able to grow their like personal brand and it helps grow doubles, they'll have a lot more business opportunities through social media endorsements, through, you know, whatever else. So I think if some of them start to see that, and I think some of them are, and one or two of them has like a huge success with it, then the other ones will be like, oh, here's the roadmap. Like, I got to have a personality. I got to put on a show on the court, grow my social following, and then I'm making more money off the court maybe than I am on the court.
That's a really great point. And yes, I wish more players sort of realized the potential, but that's where I feel like, can there be training? Can somebody be sort of like encouraging, like, these are like dollars on the table that you could have. Liam Brody is a really good example of that to me. He's been playing almost exclusively challengers and futures for the past several years. And he has built up and granted, he comes from a market that really cares about its tennis, but he has built up a following. He is very aware of sort of the social landscape in tennis. He has a sense of humor. I just think that tennis, especially tennis people, they want to have people like that to latch onto. So yes, absolutely. And people are just in total control of their own brand today, which for journalists, some players like would say, well, why would I talk to these people when I could have control? On the flip side, it can be really great for players and sort of choosing their own destiny as far as how much money they want to make. Yeah,
it's an interesting topic. And go ahead, Han.
Oh, it sounds like we just need Nick Kyrgios to become a double specialist since he was that.
It might be possible, guys. Like people would pay him to show up without a doubt. People pay him to show up now, and he generally, I shouldn't say generally, and many times, I mean, he could just as easily win the tournament as tank a first round match. Like, you have no idea what you're going to get, and people are still shelling out big bucks to get him at their tournaments. I think they would still pay him to show up and play doubles for sure.
Oh yeah.
And he loves it. He likes the team aspect. I actually think it's a possibility.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. And, you know, we could talk about this all day, but I feel like every time I talk with someone about this, I learn something new. And that little rant I had a few minutes ago was like, it felt like a breakthrough, Blair. So thank you for inspiring that.
I feel so privileged to have been present for this breakthrough with two people who talk a lot and know a lot about doubles. So
well, we're trying to make it happen. Well, thanks for hopping on, and Hanlon, thanks for coming on again for your second appearance.
Oh yeah,
and everyone, we will we'll talk to you all next time.
I would love that. And yeah, circle back with me after Indian Wells, because Stadium 3, which is where I will be, gets a lot of doubles action. So I would be happy to do this again anytime. Love talking about doubles.
Yeah, well, we'll be there. So we'll see you at Stadium 3.
There you go. Don't tell anyone else my trivia question secret. Okay.
All right.
Secret's safe. If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.